My mum was one of those people as well that believes in ghosts. So she's like, every time, Isabel, be careful. And I'm just there panicking in the dark. Yeah, it's a really nice place, 500 years old. And I worked there, and my colleague is part of the Wyvern Drinking Society, which is technically only for Magdalen students, but he's managed to drink his way in. The Belladonnas, the female drinking society, also visit there, and are apparently even worse than the men. It's also very haunted. My colleagues keep telling me stories about the doors of the class system that kind of ran out of steam. What do you guys think? Do you like the building, or not your cup of tea?
It doesn't fit so well with the other things, does it?
It makes for more to talk about, but students liked it, and there were these amazing photos and all these newspapers of it. And the prank was so successful, it was repeated again 5 years later. And couldn't put the clock tower on, so they thought they'd pay it back. But 100 years later, and they still hadn't managed to. And by then it's a grade 2 listed building, and so no one can add anything on. A well-meaning student did try to help by spray painting a clock on, but for some reason the master didn't take this kindly. He stamped his foot and recorded the amount of time the sound took to get back to him. And straight ahead, that is St John's New Court. Any guesses what New Court's used for? Well, it's actually student accommodation.
Huh?
So if you do really, really well in your undergraduate exams, you might end up with a room in there.
Oh.
So if you guys remember the rivalry between St John's and Trinity, you'll understand why St John's, after seeing Trinity build their accommodation, when the university didn't allow him to have his pet dog, he went to a travelling market and brought a bear that he kept in his accommodation. So this was built to provide ale to the students, because water at the time was undrinkable. The river is still undrinkable today, guys. Don't drink it, go to ale instead. And it took 75 years to build during the 1600s, because Oliver Cromwell kept stealing the stone to reinforce Cambridge Castle. Similarly, Pez Bridge had a run-in with Cromwell. So it's the oldest bridge on the river, built in the 1640s. And it is the oldest because Oliver Cromwell took down all the other bridges. Again, just to make Cambridge safer if anyone, especially, well, Charles I's attacks. He took very good care of the bridge. If you guys look closely, can you see the archways buckle slightly in the middle and dip? This is because he rode a cannon over it. Yeah, that's one way to damage a bridge. So Cromwell was actually a local. He came from Ely and was an MP for Cambridge. He actually ruled the country for a few years as well. But he made a couple of mistakes. Number one on my list is that he cancelled Christmas. He also named his son as his successor though, which kind of went against the whole idea of destroying the line of kings and their tyranny. Constructed with the corner overlapping onto King's land. And so today, overall, no rent is exchanged. So Bowdby's Court is student accommodation. In the common room is a pianoforte and an organ. It's nice in that regard, but still made up for it by the fact that Alan Turing actually stayed here during his time at King's, 1819, by the same man who designed the National Gallery in London, William Wilkins. Across the bridge there's actually a plaque dedicated to the Chinese poet Shiziro, who really modernised Chinese poetry and actually wrote a poem titled Farewell to Cambridge. That actually has a line in it about punting. Downwards. Well, those are actually to put off a group of students called the night climbers. They climb the buildings at night, no ropes or anything, and put things such as traffic cones up on top of the buildings. So they last put a banner reading Glory to Ukraine, and in 2009 they put a Christmas hat on one of the spires, and when the university spent money building scaffolding up to get it down, they climbed the other spire and put a Christmas hat up there. That's called called the President's Lodge, and it's the oldest building you'll see today. It's that one, the one the Max Bridge leads over to. So, the President's Lodge was built for the President and Queens in 1460s. As we come by it, you'll be able to notice that there are some bricked up windows. I'll point them out to you. But these are because of the window tax introduced in the 1600s, which charged buildings per number of windows they had. So a bit of classic tax avoidance by Queen's Club. This is actually where the phrase daylight robbery comes from. Just up there to the right, you can see them. And below the bricked up windows, can you see the two bean-shaped holes? Well, those are actually medieval garderodes. So would have been attached to toilets, thankfully decommissioned in the 1700s, or else they wouldn't be going so close to the building. Now she actually married Edward IV in secret. This is what had made the Earl really, really angry. And they had 10 children together, 2 of whom are known as the princes in the Tower of London, murdered supposedly by Richard III, and a daughter called Elizabeth of York, who married the Lancastrian King Henry VII and ended the War of the Roses. So straight ahead, this is the amazing mathematical bridge. So yeah, people will tell you it was designed by Isaac Newton, but it was actually designed by William Etheridge. Isaac died 22 years before it was built. And if you look closely, you spot the bolts holding the bridge together. So there's a rumour that these were only put in because students would come out at night and take the bridge down. This is not true, however. Oh, and a duck, yeah. 1, 2, oh, so many ducks. It does not stand up without these bolts. There was, however, an original bridge built out of oak, and it had these wooden legs that had been sanded down to make it look as though nothing was holding it up. But this rotted away and is replaced with the one you see before you in teak. Yeah, I think they're being fed more often, so they come follow the boat. It's really cute. So as we come underneath the bridge, if you guys look up, you see that the beams are straight, but they overlap to form a perfect circle. This is called tangent and radial trussing. Right, and this bridge here on my left, it's called the Essex Building, with the metal reinforcements of the wall. So only a third of the Essex Building was actually built, because Queen's ran out of money. Unfortunately, they're the poorest college because King Henry VIII took all their money. It's quite the bad guy in this tour. The bottom of the building actually eroded away as well, and had to be rebuilt. There are all these photos of the whole building just leaning away into nothing. The direction of the river was actually changed as well after this. So has anyone here heard of the Pink Floyds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they actually played under the Anchor Pub when they were called the Teacups, and it was a jazz club. There you go, there's a fun fact for the tour. And we're coming out into Mill Pond now, where our final college awaits. So Diamond College is to our right, and you'll be able to see its 2 buildings as I point you a little bit further out.
On the right.
So Darwin was actually the first of the colleges to allow women to enter in the 1960s. An amazing woman went there, such as Jane Goodall, who found that we weren't the only species to use tools, and that primates do as well. So that long building nearest to us, that's a library. And the building past that is called the Old Granary. The reason why it's called the Old Granary and the Mill Pond is because there used to be a mill here, shockingly. That was moved during the 1800s when the train stations opened. So from powerful men. It's famously quoted as claiming that there'd only be 2 chairs in his college, one for the master and one for the student they would never have. And so yes, he ran out of money, and it was refounded by Lady Elizabeth de Clare, one of the wealthiest women in England at the time. She was very well respected for being so as well, because it was hard for women to come across these kind of sums of money. She was this rich because her mother was the daughter of a king, and her father a wealthy nobleman. On top of this though, she was married and widowed 3 times. First when she was 14, and after the 3rd husband she vowed never to marry again. I think I'm just going to learn from my mistakes, so I'm just vowing never to marry straight off. But they used to call her the Black Widow on the river, thinking that she'd murdered her husband. But they all died of natural causes, so they call them war. As long as it's not one of the old bridges.
What are they up to with that bridge over there?
That's to build a cafe on Claire's.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
it's gonna go
technically the
away
newest
again.
bridge. Yeah, it's temporary for the trucks to all go across.
Hello.
So this is the view that people will argue makes King's College famous.
Wow.
So King's was actually founded by a 19-year-old. It did help, however, that he was a king, King Henry VI, in 1446. So he founded King's as a finishing school for Eton boys. Have you guys heard of Eton? Yeah, so what is today a very posh all-boys school? Actually, the reason why it took this long to build is because of the Wars of the Roses. So basically, Wars of the Roses, Game of Thrones about the dragon, a third of the population here in the UK. So unfortunately, lots of priests and lawyers died because they went around collecting the last wills and testimonies of victims and praying over them when they were at their most infectious. So yeah, they all caught the plague themselves. So this college was specifically founded to train up more of them. What do you guys think of the bridge straight ahead? One of your favourites or?
Very modern look.
Yeah, it's built in the 1960s by Timothy Guy Morgan to look like birds' wings going across the river, which is why it's that kind of V shape. And they also own the land under the O2 Arena in London, and so they get the lease for the next 1,000 years. On top of this, they have a wine cellar that's worth more than our government's, with 25,000 bottles in storage. Probably worth a little bit more now Boris Johnson's been in and gone. Right, straight ahead, this is Trinity Bridge. You can see on the left the Cambridge University shield with the line between 2 books above 3 Tudor roses. And on the right, that's Sir Francis Hooper's shield, the man who commissioned the bridge. Punters will actually have this competition where they'll try and climb the bridge and jump on their boats on the other side. You know, I would give you a demonstration today, but, you know, my wrists are feeling a bit sore. And the water is very low, so it'd be quite a drop.
Sí, sí, sí.
Instead of the Pope. So Trinity is the richest of the colleges.
Look at that one.
Used for the colleges, of course, the trade of Punting. Now this building on our right here is the back of Newport.
This one.
You may notice when I show you the front that it's a very plain building at the back. This is because the architects Hutchinson and Brickman didn't put the money in because they thought only lower class hunting tradespeople would be coming down this area of the river. Today, after the leisure companies boomed, it's why they planted all the beautiful Boston ivy over the building. Yeah, shot in the dark. It leads over to St John's kitchen. You can see the Tudor portcullis of the archway we're heading to, and over on the left, the Tudor rose. One horn facing forwards and one horn facing backwards. Well, these are actually Yales, magical animals supposed to protect the Tudor family. The Rich in Wildlife, there's a line in the Doomsday Book claiming that there's such numbers of fish as to astonish strangers. Locals would have traded in these fish, and Cambridge would have also been 9 miles from the coast, and so it would have had really good connections with Europe. Goods would have been taken on